Welcome back, everybody. We are at 2nd Chronicles yet again, if you can believe that. Although this video literally lives in a playlist called 2nd Chronicles, so it shouldn't be a surprise to you, but if it is, surprise! We're in 2nd Chronicles. We're going to be in chapter 9 today, and basically 2nd Chronicles up to this point has been a highlight reel for Solomon's life. He's built the temple, he's furnished the temple, he's put all these people in place around the temple to make sure everybody's doing their roles, and everything is going really well. But now the man who's built everything is now the guy that everyone wants to come and visit. And in chapter 9, we see one specific visitor, a super famous lady that you may have heard of, and she comes with questions and bling. And her name is the Queen of Sheba. Yeah, you know her. You remember her? I don't know. Maybe you do. Maybe you don't. All right, verse 1. When the Queen of Sheba heard of Solomon's fame, she came to Jerusalem to test him with some hard questions. She arrived with a large group of attendants and a great caravan of camels loaded with spices, large quantities of gold, and precious jewels. When she met with Solomon, she talked with him about everything she had on her mind. She's like, I did not fly all this way for a casual visit with you, Solomon. I have questions, and I have a lot of them. She came with some tough questions, although it doesn't tell us what those questions were. It says they were tough. She came with those tough questions. She came with some fancy gifts, and she probably had a clipboard in her hand. But, spoiler alert, Solomon aced her pop quiz. In verse 2, it says Solomon had answers for all her questions. Nothing was too hard for him to explain to her. He was basically the human version of Google.com. Every question that the Queen of Sheba posed to Solomon, he was able to answer, and that impressed her. Anyhow, verse 4 says that she was overwhelmed by all of this stuff, by the palace, by the wisdom of Solomon, by the way that the way that his servants were dressed. All of this was overwhelming to her, and she was shook. And in verse 6 it says, I didn't believe what was said until I arrived here and saw it with my own eyes. In fact, I had not heard the half of your great wisdom. It is far beyond what I was told. That's right, the rumors didn't do Solomon justice. Imagine being so wise and rich that people are literally underwhelming you just by talking about you. And then she drops gold, spices, and jewels like she's tipping Solomon for a good service. In fact, in verse 9 it says she gave him 9,000 pounds of gold, great quantities of spices, and precious jewels. The poor lady came to ask questions and she left broke. I mean, that stinks. And then starting in verse 13, it's basically just a list of all the splendor that was Solomon's wealth and kingdom. There was gold everywhere. There were shields that were made of gold. There were thrones that were made of ivory and gold. And there was fleets of ships bringing in more gold. All, just the essential stuff. In verse 22, it says, So King Solomon became richer and wiser than any other king on the earth. People came from all over the place just to hear Solomon talk, and they didn't come empty-handed a lot of times either. Solomon had a whole line of gift givers outside of his door at any given time, and his wealth grew because of it. But then, Solomon dies. Like a good TV show that gets canceled mid-season. After all of that, Solomon passes away. Verse 30 says, Solomon ruled in Jerusalem over Israel for 40 years. When he died, he was buried in the city of David, named for his father. Then his son, Rehoboam, became the next king. Boom. That's it. Rehoboam, Solomon's son, takes the throne, and things start to get interesting. But we'll see that more later. If someone came to inspect your life like the Queen of Sheba did for Solomon, what about us would leave them speechless? Would it be our wisdom? Would it be our generosity? Would it be our TV show recommendations? Basically, what are we known for? And what are we building that's worth sharing with the world? Won't he do it?